Today I'm joined with Steffen Hedebrandt. I hope that I pronounced that a little bit correctly. And I'm so excited to speak to you today because, as you know, the podcast is called Connecting Dots, which is connecting marketing activities to business results. And I think you're like the perfect person to speak to. So I just wanted to let you introduce yourself a little bit and what does Dreamdata do?
Yeah, happy to, Ricardo. My background is kind of always been working in marketing related roles, growth roles, etc. Ever since I graduated the Copenhagen Business School back in 2010. So it's been some years now. I've always been working in very digital companies, or like 100% digital companies. And always in B2B companies. So my view of the marketing world is very much biased by this. As you said, like connecting the dots has been kind of at least something that I've become more and more obsessed about during my career. My first job out of university, you can say, kind of failed because we didn't manage to connect marketing results with business outcomes. So that was a vintage music instrument platform where we managed to grow the organic traffic to like a 6-digit number every month. But we couldn't get the shops that were listing their music instruments to actually pay for that traffic that we then sent on towards them. And if you don't make money, you run out of money at some point. And that kind of that was a good lesson that it matters that you're not only successful with, or say it in another way, the scorecard for marketing truly is whether you sell something or not. It's not just that awareness goes up; it's also that your company actually manages to sell more afterwards. And that kind of has become my focus of how I think about marketing ever since. In my last tenure before Dreamdata, I was at a B2B hardware company called Airtame, and there we were kind of lucky that we had this option of selling the product on the website as well as selling it through channel and distribution. And so I could run all our marketing activities based on whether people came to the website or not and bought the product. So we went from spending $0 on ads per month to almost close to $100,000 on ads every month, but done in a way that we could kind of prove that there was a return on the website. The stupid thing, though, which I couldn't figure out back then, was that I was judging the ad spend in the same month as we made the ad spend, which makes no sense in B2B because you plan the seed and then the dot only connects 6 or 12 months later. So I had the big investment every month, and then I thought about that investment as that was what we could see come into the website and buy in the same month, which is a completely stupid way of doing things, but that was all I had available. And then, maybe to make a transition, then at the end of my tenure there, the last bigger project was I built a content team there. We wanted to move away of just being depending on running ads. So we hired a videographer, a designer, a writer, and a manager for those 3 people. And they managed to start, doing a good output in terms of content that they released. We could also see organic traffic was going up in Google Analytics. But when the CFO or the CEO comes, you can't really say, hey, this is how we pay salary with organic traffic going up in Google Analytics. So, and then I happened to I got introduced to my now 2 co-founders of this company where I'm at now, Dreamdata, where we had been using a product called Segment for storing all website activities in a database. And we gave my 2 now co-founders access to this data. and so they could try to put that into the prototype they had started, they were working on. And suddenly we could start to see that some of the content articles we had created in the beginning of the year, at some point in late Q4, started to actually be the source of the deals that were won, like 6 or 12 months later. And for me, that was kind of just the, I don't know what you call it, the
moments.
kind of the holy grail of connecting the dots, because you have this big investment in headcount of like hiring people to produce content, but you have nothing to show for their work unless you're able to connect the dots between that long B2B journey where there's multiple people involved, many months, many sessions, etc. But because we could see these things, that these articles starts journeys that become money 6 or 12 months later, then suddenly the investment in, like, for example, producing content started to make sense. And then, 4 years later now, we've been running this company, Dreamdata, where what we basically do for our customers is to try to connect the dots between any kind of activity and with the pipeline and revenue outcomes. So that was a long intro there for you, Ricardo.
No, it's perfect. So thank you very much for the introduction. And you've touched a few points that I really want to deep dive in today. But before we start about business, so when we like to do the podcast, we like to connect also at Saasmic, we like to connect fun also with the business itself. So we always start with the non-business things first. Even in our stand-ups, we talk about the most random stuff ever. And I wanted to start with some few questions first. So as you know, in our podcast, we do our research very well. So we go very far, and we go as far as 8 years in this case. So Zoltan was able to pick up something very interesting, which was a mantra you posted on Instagram 8 years ago. Which,
what did I post?
Yeah, that is a tricky one. What did you post? So
Say it
the
again,
mantra was going as this: be honest, open, curious, give more than you take, work hard, do what you love, and enjoy. So has this life mantra changed in the last 8 years?
Oh, fuck, that's funny. Not too much. I would say that's funny you say. I haven't thought about that for probably 8 years or something like that. No, I think that kind of reflects pretty much how I go to work and to life. I'm quite happy about that still.
Still the same.
But it's funny because I deleted the Instagram app maybe 4 years ago. So the account exists, but I'm not using it anymore. I have actually, on my phone nowadays, I have the Messenger app, so I can communicate with friends, and then I have Twitter, and that's it.
That's it?
Yeah, I just thought that kind of, like, for Instagram particularly, that was like, I don't need to know that some like French person I know is eating pizza in Greece right now. that information I just don't need to have in my brain. So I just decided, oh, fuck, okay, let's just get rid of that thing. I do occasionally download it if there's something my girlfriend insists that I go check out, but that noise is out of my life now. Now you'll see me posting on LinkedIn most days instead.
And do you have the LinkedIn app or absolutely not?
The LinkedIn app I have deleted as well, a bit for the same purpose, because I found myself, if you just like scroll LinkedIn for 10 seconds on your mobile phone, you pick up like 8 discussions that you have an opinion about. And then the brain starts, like, even though I'm not commenting on everything, the brain starts answering these discussions running through. And I just felt like, I need to, so I use LinkedIn on my computer, and when I'm not at my computer, it's it's shut down.
Because I guess what you want to have is tranquility in your brain so you can function during the day, I assume, or like
it's also like, fuck, there's not a lot of, I have like 2 small kids as well, so there's not a lot of rest. So I guess I just wanted to like be a little bit more like allow the things in your life that makes sense, and not kind of, as I said, these random discussions on LinkedIn or some people you barely know where they're traveling and stuff like that.
I like that one, and actually connects with my next question, because we've learned that you did El Camino journey.
Yeah.
Like, how was this? How was this journey for you? Why did you do this, basically?
Yeah, first of all, I really like it, and I can really recommend it to anybody who's like, if you're curious about it, I would say just go. I actually did it 2 times. The first time I did it, I did walk from like Burgos to Lyon, which is the middle part, and then I came back and walked from Lyon to Santiago de Compostela. Why did I do it? I guess to kind of the challenge of it, just doing something alone, going into kind of the a little bit the unknown, and testing myself to see how I would react by just walking every day, and talking with the other people who's walking there. I think it's really good for reflection, because and it's another example of like, if like on a day-to-day basis I'm exposed to so much information and it's just floating into my brain. So when you walk there, just walk in nature, and you can try to make a peace with all the information that is already in your mind. And then it's super healthy, like walking 6 hours a day, and having some dinner, and then go to sleep, and then get up the next morning again to do the same.
So I just realized there's somebody doing like pull-ups.
Yeah, we have a pull-up bar outside this office, so people do that once in a while.
Sorry, I just thought I was like super cool.
Yeah.
Okay, but I understood that then. I feel like the word here is distraction, basically. Like you like El Camino just distracts you from all the rest and just focus on the walking and your thoughts. And the same thing with your phone, you just deleted all the apps and you're like hyper focused. So I love that you're really focusing on what you're doing, and I feel that's also what you're doing with Dreamdata. You're putting all your focus on this specific aspect.
Yeah, it's a little bit you have to come to the realization at some point that you need to get rid of the FOMO, like the fear of missing out on something. If you wanna be really effective within one thing, you have to let go of being updated on every single thing that takes place in the world, and then you. I don't know what do they call these things that that you put on horses when they you put when they race. So like, you need to decide what it is you wanna go to try and achieve, and then get rid of all the other noise that kind of distracts you from where you want to go.
I love that one. So walking through that, because before we get to the Dreamdata stuff, we want to look at your career steps from a growth leader, basically. So we always say Rome is not built in one day, and running Dreamdata is not something that you've just woken up and you're like, let's run Dreamdata. There's a past, I assume, before that. And you walked through that. And the first one was the vintage musical instrument shop. We also had that listed. We're like, this is so cool. Is there any things that you've learned? But I think we already covered that as well, is that you really missed connecting the dots between, marketing and also the business, I assume.
Yeah, if I look back at kind of, there's been absolutely no career plan that I don't work that way, but I pursue stuff that I find interesting and challenging, and then I try to do my best in whatever situation I end up in. So I think I think this is also kind of, there's so much crap out there about what's a growth hacker or like growth marketing or whatever. Like, I honestly don't care about tactics. I just care about succeeding. So I think for any job I've had, is just kind of figuring out, okay, what is the stuff that works, and let's try to scale that as much as we can. And I think that's the skill you need to have like have like a testing mentality to everything, and just try stuff out. And as soon as you find something that works, then you double or triple the efforts there, because you can see that's what's like driving the business forward.
No, okay. I think that's also something we'll walk through in the next topic, but that's the first 100 days. How do you get to that? But I'll definitely walk you through that in a second. I think one thing that you shared as well is an image of Martin Luther King, maybe on Instagram,
I did.
which is deleted.
I think that was just, I was walking around in Washington trying to catch some of the cool stuff there, and that Martin Luther King. I think it's in that kind of. Is it called the? What's it called? The one that goes from the Congress of the United States down to this big statue, and then at the end of that, he's down there somewhere. What's it
Yeah.
called? Fuck, I can't recall it now.
Yeah.
But I think that's also kind of like this kind of pursuit of. Also, I got annoyed by myself. Like when I'm traveling, I'm trying to take pretty pictures because then I can get likes on Instagram, and it's like, it's kind of fuck that. I don't want to be that person.
And I think on the picture it says just keep moving forward.
Yeah.
That's what it said. So is there any significant like challenge or major fuck up that you look at and is like, I just had to keep moving forward?
I think I'm blessed with being kind of naturally motivated for most things. So I think that's kind of, you learn that to succeed with anything, it's not, you shouldn't think about it as a sprint. It is a marathon. And it's a matter of that you show up every day and try to get, just get 1% better every month. And then like at some point that accumulates to something really nice. You can't give up. You just need to try other things. And I think that's kind of, I've ran 5 marathons and gone to Kilimanjaro and Mount Elbrus, and I've played handball at the highest level when I was a junior. So it's kind of this kind of having a target and then showing up and putting in the efforts every day is kind of something that I've always. It's not because it's easy, but it's I know it's necessary, and like sometimes you can outwork people, and sometimes you have to have talent, and that jumps a little bit. Sometimes you can. Sometimes it's the one thing that matters, and the other times it's the other thing.
Is that a little bit how you balance short-term results versus long-term strategies? Just the 1% better every single day, or is there other stuff that you're thinking about where you're like, okay, this is what you need to do for the long term, and this is how I balance it off with the short-term results? Because I assume if you have investors or team members that you have to pay, you do need to have a little bit of a short-term result as well.
Yeah, like you go nowhere without having proof that you achieve results every month. Like I think you're doing it the wrong way, and I think your company is doing it the wrong way if they're not holding you accountable for actually getting shit done. But I don't know. I don't think too much about long-term results because, as you know, in a startup, you're dead by then if you don't do the short-term results. So for me, it's more about like looking at where are we today or this week, and what is the most impactful thing that I can succeed with this week. Next week, it's something else, and just keep trying to do my best at whatever it is.
And did you like build a plan of like, okay, let's go like 3-6 months, where do we want to go? And then you look at it, or you're like, what are we doing this week that is the most impactful thing?
I think we of course we do a yearly budget and target at Dreamdata, but the way we organize things is around quarterly goals. So the maximum outlook we do is 3 months, because 3 months from now the world might have completely changed. Like you can't like pray on a day that never comes. You need to like figure out what is the most impactful thing we can do today. Or you might think that, hey, then we're going to do this feature 12 months from now. But if you then stay committed to that plan and the market doesn't want that feature, then you've spent way too much thinking about and building this feature just to be rejected by the market. So you need to be, I think, hyper agile and try to like ride the waves that do come when you when you're running month on month.
Interesting. So basically, your planning is 3 months. Basically, if I can
Yeah.
look 3 months ahead, that's already success, and we adapt along the way.
Yeah. Of course, there's like different kinds of hypotheses and ideas that what could be cool to do in the future, but it's not. We don't commit to more than 3 months at a time because things, war in Ukraine, COVID, stuff like that. Things just happen, and then if you've spent a quarter just planning, and versus you've spent a quarter just trying to execute on everything you could, then you're in a much better position otherwise. But this is probably here where we should think about that. I've probably only worked in startups or scale up companies. I've not worked in a big enterprise, so I don't know how that mechanic work. I just know that you need to be super fast when you run startups.
Yeah, in enterprise, well, actually, we had to deliver budget this month for next quarter, for like next year. To give you an example, like what's the plan of
Who knows?
2024 was delivered this month for
Who
next
knows?
year. So yeah, that's a different ball game indeed. But indeed,
Yeah.
it's quite, it's not flexible anymore. You can make it flexible, but indeed, if you're running at a 3 month time, it is a little bit different for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting take, I would say. It's man, when I'm looking at your profile as a marketer, you can get the feeling that you've been successful everywhere, and that you kind of need to know everything. That's a little bit the feeling I get. So I wanted to see what advice would you give to other marketers, basically, because you've mentioned growth marketers. You're not really a fan of that. So what is your take, like advice to other marketers coming from you?
It's funny. A friend of mine called Halfdan. He's probably never going to hear this, but he's running a big marketing agency in Copenhagen, and he said like, you know what, most marketers, they don't care as much as the two of us do.
Mm.
And I think that is just kind of, I fucking want to win. If I'm not successful, I want to be better. And that is just not how most people go to their work. It's kind of, okay, things didn't work out, or we achieved a mediocre result. Like, it's not to kind of bash on them, because that's, it's normal not to be kind of obsessed with doing well, but I just really want to do well. So that means that with any kind of challenge I'm facing, if I don't know what to do, I'll go to YouTube, I'll go to Google, and nowadays I'll go to ChatGPT and try to like get the answers. So it's this deeply caring about doing well. I think that leads you to curiosity and to asking friends and to like go to conference, listen to podcasts, read what you can about certain challenges and how to overcome it. And then joined with like a good work ethics of like showing up every day, trying to do a little bit better than you did the other day. So I think the key ingredient is the mindset of really wanting to achieve something and being curious, and like, you need an ability to just get stuff done. Like it's there's a lot of things in marketing, you would notice, Ricardo, that is not rocket science, but it's about getting it done and doing it the right way, and coming back the next day or the next month and looking at the ad campaigns, making them a little bit, make sure you've set your UTMs. There's so many things that is not rocket science, but it's a matter of like just follow best practice and keep doing it every single day.
Yeah, I keep repeating that as well. Marketing is not rocket science. In its base, it's not rocket science, but it is something you need to wake up every single day to be better 1%.
Yeah, but you asked earlier about if I had one advice, and then I think that would be for marketers to be constantly curious about how the dots connect. Meaning that you have to ask yourself, what is the formula for how we produce revenue with marketing?
Yes.
Like, if we do
100%.
this thing, is there a chance that money comes out on the other side? And if you like, sometimes you have data, other times you have to go with your own story, but you have to constantly be curious about what we're looking for is the cheat codes for the computer game. If we do these things, then money comes out later on. And that question you need to kind of keep searching for in whatever company you're in. That the recipe is probably going to be different in most cases.
Yeah.
But be curious about, can I find a formula where if I do ABC, then money comes out?
I think I'll add to that is finding the formula. And I always say this when I coach people is that finding the formula to how you attribute success or money to the company, basically. So what are you doing that attributes back to the company, but also being able to communicate that in a proper way. So that's where I see the lack sometimes is one is, what am I doing? And people know it's like, yeah, I send this email campaign. So yes, it's probably doing something, but then also communicating it back. And I don't know, internal marketing. It's like, hey, we've done this newsletter. We actually had like 1,000 leads coming out and they've converted down the line 3 months later. Making that communication is sometimes where I also see the gap.
Very much agree. And I think you should take it on you, the responsibility of explaining why you do stuff. It's not the organization that has to come and ask you about it. You should like be transparent and say, this is our plan. Okay, now we tried this, it worked this way, we expect to see XYZ. I typically think about it as either you are given the budget by the CFO or the CFO gives you the budget. Meaning that either you proactively explain the organization, this is what we're going to do because we're going to achieve XYZ, or they come to you and say, here's your budget, go play around and we'll fire you when it doesn't work out.
It's funny that you said it because we're now in the process of launching a SaaS marketing finance template where basically you put in the metrics to ask more budget to the CFO, because we've seen this so many times where it's like, okay, I need more marketing budgets. Like, okay, but why? Like, how are you connecting it back to the dots? Like, how much MRR is going to come out? It's like, we don't know. We're just launching a newsletter. It's like, no, how is that connecting? Like, is that improving activation rate? Is that improving MQL stages? Like, how is this working?
And I think the marketers that fail and get fired are the ones that don't know how to connect. Afraid of having that conversation, or they just don't know that it's important to have that conversation. But then take it from all our battle scars that you need to keep the organization updated about why are we doing these things and what is it we're hoping to achieve, and try to estimate the impact of your work if you don't have like proper data.
And also, if just stupid things, but if you want a raise, like asking a raise when you're saying, I've made so much money for you and this is my salary and I want an improvement of whatever, 10%, 20%. It's super easy. It's like, this is how much money you made for me. This is how it works.
But if you haven't told anybody of it and they don't see any proof of it or anything like that, then they're going to say no to that raise, because like, why would they really want to keep you?
Completely. So this is also where we get to the second stage. So we call this stage driving demand. So I love this one because it's really about growth stories on, how do you drive demand and how do you make sure that people are aware of what you're doing, basically. So I think the first question or the first topic I wanted to talk about is Airtame. I think I'm pronouncing that well. Can you quickly share what Airtame was doing? Because you mentioned a little bit, and then share some insights and strategies that you use to really drive demand there.
Yeah, so it's a screen sharing device that you put into your screens in the office, and then you don't have to use the cables. You can just use an app that shares the screen to the bigger screen. That's the
simplest way of saying it.
Yeah,
love it.
And then it's sold to schools and to businesses. We started out. I joined. It was born out of an Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign, where like 10,000 backers ordered this product, which like three guys who was like midway through university had promised that they could create. And of course they didn't have the skills to do this supremely well. Like, and then, you learn down the way that you should never get into hardware. But so we had when I joined, they had just shipped the first device, which, was super full of bugs and wasn't working super well. So you just had like angry people there all the time. But we took it on us to write to every single one of the customers, asking if there was anything we could help with, and just taking the dialogue one by one with all of these people, trying to kind of like win them over one by just being super friendly and helpful. And of course, you don't win all of them, but people will kind of in general respect you if you try to be genuinely nice and try to really help them with with the product you've sold them. And I think that was kind of that one thing, looking at every single email you send to one person as an opportunity to improve the relationship just a little bit, can actually make a good difference for your company. I'll tell you about two more things that I've found as growth levers. So if you take that, winning over one person to like you, I think about it as you save up some goodwill with a customer. And when you've saved up goodwill, you can extract that goodwill into an action. And that action that we found was extremely good for us was to get them to write a review on Amazon, because the Amazon algorithm is very much steered by the reviews you have and what it says in the reviews and so forth. And because Amazon is the world's biggest shop, then having a hardware device ranking well when people search in there was extremely extremely effective strategy. So it came kind of to the core of how we did. I don't know. Yeah, it's probably like the whole go-to-market, that we need to treat everybody super well, so we save up goodwill, and then once we identify goodwill, which meant that we frequently scan for a like net promoter score, then everybody who replied 8, 9, or 10 to that net promoter score, they got an automated email from us saying, "Oh, super glad to see that you're happy with the product. Could you please go here to Amazon and give us a review?" So we had a really, really good growth loop going on there, and I think that was the big advantage, that kind of at Dreamdata we have G2, Capterra, etc. But it's not places where people like complete a transaction in that sense.
Yeah,
Amazon is a place where like this is where you go and buy stuff, and if there's a lot of volume and you're ranking on that volume, that's a highly attractive place to funnel your reviews. So that was a really good growth lever, and I can still recommend it to this day to like if you have customers, ask them about that net promoter score question. How likely are you to recommend your product? And then you can start automating actions based on what's replied. If it's 8, 9, or 10, you try to extract the goodwill into something. If they're not happy, like you need to talk to them. You need to understand why are they not happy, and then you need to try to make them happy. It's super simple, but it works super well.
It's funny how you call it also growth loops, basically. I love the word already, where it's a loop and you're basically just identifying a channel and you're just saying, okay, this is a good channel. Let's figure out how the algorithm works. Okay, the algorithm works based on reviews. Let's see how we can get more positive reviews to just scale one channel, basically. So I love how you're doing. Is it the same approach well, this is actually for later, but is it the same approach you're doing for Dreamdata right now on G2 and Capterra, or is it like, it's not the same playbook there?
We don't have as much volume as they had at Airtime for one, but yes, we still try to collect reviews everywhere we can, because I want to do marketing to make the life of the salespeople as easy as possible. So having, for example, a G2 profile with more than 100 positive reviews makes the life of the salespeople a lot easier, because they can say, like, by the way, if you're in doubt, you can go check our G2 profile, and then they can just read through 100 people who are happy about the product. So yes, it's like this social proof of review sites is still very much a part of how we go to market now. But it's not as transactional, because it's not Amazon where you show up to buy.
No, it's a different mindset you're in. You're just basically browsing, as you would call it, not buying.
I think in software, then these sites helps you get on the list of vendors that you should talk to, but it doesn't necessarily give you the contract.
Yeah, fully agree. Well, I'll walk you through that in a second, but
Yeah, and
first
then
wanted
if you
to.
want the last growth
Yes,
component that
please.
worked extremely well, it was the honeymoon days of Facebook advertising. So we're in like 2016, and they just released lookalike audiences, and there was super low competition, and the lookalike audiences was of a super high quality. So we could run ads towards the 1% of the Americans who reminded the most about all those Indiegogo backers that like they had like 10,000 Indiegogo backers. So just throw them up there, and it was kind of also the heyday of retargeting. So so like you could retarget for 6 months, or like even on some actions you can retarget on 12 months. So we ran these lookalike audience where you could draw out 1% of a population that reminds about your current emails. And then you could, on top of that, you could then retarget them for for 6 months. So that that was what we spent the largest chunk of our money on Facebook, because the competition was relatively low and the quality of the audiences there was super high. Nowadays, I don't use Facebook that much, mainly because we can almost only do retargeting there. I can't really like our audience for Dreamdata is so narrow that it doesn't make sense to try to do like broad scope audiences in that sense. But there, I think there's a marketing lesson for life there as well. Like when you find a channel that works super well for you, it's just you need to double, triple, quadruple, five double, like while it's working, because it's going to stop working at some point, because marketers go on podcasts or to conferences and speak to each other, and then we ruin all the return on investment because everybody's using the same tactics.
I always say when there's a course fit, it's too late.
Yeah, it is. I completely agree.
It's like when drop shipping courses go live, I'm like, yeah, drop shipping area is over. What's next?
Yeah,
Because you need
exactly.
to be on the next wave, not on the wave that has been made a course about.
Very much agree.
And so you don't really, you mentioned that you don't really buy into the full funnel approach, or the funnel approach, I would say, the journey in that sense.
Yeah.
What do you feel like? Why is it an outdated approach for you?
Good question, Ricardo. So the reason why I'm just hesitating a little bit is I think it does make sense to have some sort of funnel thinking in general, but the individual customer couldn't care less about where you think he or she is in the funnel. So what I mean by that is that like somebody who's like, let's say you could have a super hot, like a lead that is like late stage sales conversation, but they could read what you put in the top funnel content bucket. And then, or you could have a very early stage customer that is reading kind of your DPA or something like that. So I don't think you can really run. You can't force people to behave like they're in a funnel. They don't care, and they just look at what they want to look at. So I think the only really good suggestion you can do is to put out high quality content all the time to stay top of mind of people. Like make sure that you never release stuff of low quality that will look poorly on your brand. On the opposite side, from the high level perspective, I do think you can think about in a funnel more like in a buying decision sense. So think about what is the content that needs to be available in your website, so they at least have the chance to look at it as they try to evaluate whether they should go with you or your competition. I want a website to answer any question that a customer might have, so the salesperson doesn't have to be the gatekeeper of information. Both because it's ineffective, but also because it's impossible to get salespeople who understands every single detail about your technology and about marketing and about sales and data processing agreement and all those kinds of things. So what I typically advise people is to think about when you win deals, who are the personas or stakeholders on the deals, and think through whether your website actually offers good answers to all of them. Like if there's always a security person involved and you don't have like a section on your website that talks about security, make sure you provide content for that person.
Yeah. Okay. Do you look at it from a stakeholder management content journey? I would say. So you look at what's the stakeholders that need to make a decision, who needs to be informed, who takes a decision, who owns the budget, and then making sure that each of them have a content. So it's not just one person hooping through the loops; it's multiple people hooping through the loops and making sure that they all have the same content at the same time.
Yeah, in B2B, it's typically the first person you meet, and say you win this person over to being like a fan of your product. That person still needs to go back to his or her organization and convince the rest of the organization. So you need to kind of arm them with arguments for why that you are right and they should go with your product. So it could be like having business case information available on your website that person can take to the CFO, or if it's the data king, the chief data protection officer, like make sure that you've achieved the security certificate so that person can show that. Like there's a lot of people that you need to, like gatekeepers that you need to get through once you've convinced the first champion. And what we want to do in marketing is make that sales process as easy as possible. So by figuring out what are all the possible questions that could be asked in relation to us.
So you don't think about content from a, what do you want to call it, bofu, mofu, tofu kind of process. It's more stakeholder and what kind of questions they have, and based on those questions, what content do we need to produce to arm them?
Yeah, I can tell you across like most Dreamdata customers, spending time of top funnel content as you define it there is a waste of time. Because these really broad, a little bit about search as well, Ricardo, right? So like these, like when you do your keyword research and you find the biggest keyword with the most volume, there's never any like buying intention behind. Like if we take a stupid example of buying a running shoe, if somebody searches for running shoe, like what are they trying to find out here? Are they trying to buy something? Are they trying to understand how a running shoe is constructed? Is like what are they actually in for? Versus like, let's say they want to have like a, what's it called, the run I have that kind of Adidas Ultra Boost in a white size 44. Somebody who's searching for that is trying to actually buy something. So in any case, I would always like produce any content you can where people are actually showing an intention of being interested in becoming a customer of something. Whereas the very, very, very broad, like as you would say, top of funnel content, it's 9 out of 10 times a waste of time, because you might bring in a lot of traffic, but that traffic is completely waste of time. And then also retargeting money afterwards, because there's no intention of buying what you're selling.
Okay, because I guess that's true for some companies as well. But for example, there's companies that just start a new thing. I think Dreamdata is an example of that. Like your category didn't exist. Like, okay, you had Google Analytics, but it's not for B2B, but your category, say, didn't exist. So you had to build a category around that. So I guess there's no search intent when you started out for your category, right?
So completely right, Ricardo. And we have then for a long time just been thinking about like how can we produce like more like thought leadership style of content. So can we demonstrate knowledge about a certain topic or a certain feature? But there's, I think, like nowadays you call it zero search content or something like that.
Zero click content. Yeah, I see where you got that from.
But it's kind of, so what I did was I wrote like really like geeky stuff about B2B attribution, and then I posted it in a community called growthhackers.com, where I knew that people would understand the concept here. So I took that content, which had basically zero search, and put it in front of people who would be interested in the topic. And then we were lucky enough to, I think, 3 times be on that weekly
In the
digest that
newsletter.
they had. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then this is not a good tech or not a example of marketing doesn't work forever. But back then, you would then get like thousands of clicks from that newsletter coming to our website, trying to figure out what it is we were doing then.
Love it. Well, this is actually the next step where I wanted to talk to, which is actually what the podcast is about, is connecting the dots. So I love that you're introducing it already.
Yeah, just I have a meeting in 25 minutes, so I need to run at that point.
No worries. We have 3 questions left, so I'll cover that in a second.
Wonderful.
So yeah, as you know, the show is called Connecting the Dots. Like I said, you're like the perfect guest. So I have a couple of questions about connecting the dots, and we've walked through that in a second already. But first, before we start about Dreamdata and the scale, basically, how were you like your first 100 days? You walked me through a little bit on how you use Segment. Is it .com or IO right now?
We have both domains, but it's .io.
Yeah. So you walked me through the first 100 days, how you met your co-founder and then you joined them. But walk me through like your first 100 days. How was that like?
The first 100 days were a big chunk of it was just when you start a company, you notice yourself you're all over the place. But I think one of the fundamental challenges is that like my 2 partners who used to be CTOs and CPOs, so they're not like commercial thinkers. So the first thing I needed to do was to try to get all the knowledge out of their brains about what is the vision of the product, how is it that the product works, and then I actually needed to translate that into language that marketers could understand, because I think the website back then was just 1 page. And it's like super limited in explanations of what is this thing, how does it work, who's it for, and all those things. So I had to kind of interview these few people and try to, okay, what does this part of the product do? What does this part of the product do? And then you have to establish a website where you can actually show it to people and they can get a pretty good understanding of what it is that you do. So a big chunk of those 100 days were trying to get the knowledge out of the brain of my co-founders and onto some like publicly available material where you could understand what's going on. And then I think secondly, then it was trying to okay, so let's say it's post funding, because the first 5 thing was just trying to like talk with investors and give us some money as well. Yeah. So after that, it was kind of actually I want to mention that I feel like we listened a little bit too much to common best practice, because people were saying, I think Copenhagen is pretty big on outbound. So investors say, hey, you should be doing outbound to do this. And I tried doing it for like 12, that's too much, maybe 6 months or so, like I sporadically tried to outbound, because that's what people are saying that the other companies are doing. And I kind of forgot that I'm a really good marketer. But I kept trying to do like this kind of like connect, call, DM, and it just felt so ineffective, because I could be speaking to you right now, but I could also find 1,000 more of you, and then I can speak one to many. So when I gave up on trying to do what was best practice and focused on my own strength instead, that made a huge difference in our growth. I think that's like it might be that something is best practice, but if you're not good at it, it's not good for your company trying to pursue it, because you don't have the skills or you don't have the desire to succeed with these things.
Or find somebody who does. I think we have the boat mindset. I hate outbounds, like really like 1,000 emails outbounds. It's just not me. I tried it as well. It's like, this just doesn't feel like me. Like this is, exactly. I think it's also a personality thing, I feel.
And then the last thing was also, I think I did the first 100 demo calls that got booked on the website. So that taught me really, really, really to care about the quality of MQLs, because
Mm.
there's nothing worse for a salesperson than to sit in a demo call where you can just, from like the second minute, you just know they're not
This
gonna
is not going to
buy.
happen.
Yeah, they don't even understand what we do. They're looking for another product. They don't have budget. Like, you need to
Mm.
care deeply about putting high quality leads to the salespeople. Otherwise, the salespeople is going to be wasting their time, and
Mm.
ultimately, as you're a co-founder, you're wasting the company's time and money on these things.
Yeah, it looks good on metrics and CPLs, but it actually doesn't look if
It
it doesn't
doesn't. Yeah,
translate to revenue. There's this synergy. I think that's what I wanted to talk about, because that is, I feel like you talk about the necessity of key departments aligning and working together for business
yeah,
wide goals.
yeah.
Like, what was your, is that the idea you started from in the beginning? So first 100 demo calls, we're gonna jump on them, just so for me to understand, and also to understand what am I actually passing on to the salespeople.
Yeah, it was kind of it's kind of was a necessity because there was no one else to do it. So I think we didn't get salespeople until we raised the seed round. So from the pre-seed round, getting those customers we needed to raise the seed round was all me, and then I got my co-founders to join to. So yeah, I did all the sales there.
Do you feel every single marketer should jump on sales calls?
Close to everyone should try to be on sales calls.
Hmm.
But
I
I think
learned this at the grocery store.
a better advice, perhaps, Ricardo, is to get in any company. Marketers should also always be part of the weekly pipeline meeting of the salespeople, because they need to hear about what it is that the salespeople talk about, what they care about, what questions that they get asked. Because salespeople, they think in one-to-one solutions, but as marketers, we think about one-to-many solutions. And you can pick up so much stuff where you can easily help the salespeople. So, like, I give an example that Laura got asked, a salesperson at our team got asked on a mail whether we had a SAML login, which is a higher security login type. And I knew we had that. But then I checked our website. This information is not available on our website. The next day, I've updated the website where you can clearly see we have this type of login. And hopefully she doesn't get that one-on-one question anymore, because we could get rid of it, because I'm part of every weekly sales meeting.
Yeah, love it.
Also,
So,
like
yeah.
what should really inspire whatever content you do is the questions that customers ask your salespeople. Like, just ask the salespeople every week, which questions have you been asked? If you don't have a good blog post that address these things, produce a really good answer to these things, because then the salespeople only have to remember, I know we have a great blog post about this. I'll ship it to you after the call.
Yeah. I love it. So it's also what we do at SDRs. Every week we have an SDR call where we just say, what's your insights of the week? What questions did you get asked? How did you, like, what did you say? What did you reply? Because most marketers don't even know how to reply to the questions.
Yeah.
It's mostly the sales that know how to reply to the questions as well.
Yeah.
But I love that one. Jump on the weekly calls, making sure that you actually listen to the questions and just answer them. It's actually so simple, but
Yeah,
I don't think
it
a
is.
lot of people do it.
But I think it's because in many companies, people don't see them as part of the same customer journey. They just care about, like, making stuff work in their own little silo. But for a customer, you have to think about that the customer is just experiencing one company. Like, the first touch, the first experience, the sales process, the product, the CS work. For the customer, it's just one process with the same company. So you shouldn't be focusing on sub-optimizing something over in your little silo. You should think about, how can we make the whole process as smooth as possible.
Got it. And you've said you did the first 100 demo calls. What I'm curious about, how did you drive the initial traction, basically? How did you get those first 100 demo calls? Was this you doing outbound? Was it Google Ads? What was the strategy there?
So part of it was this content, or like, write good content and then distribute it in different kind of forums, like whether it's like a community like Growth Hackers, or put it on LinkedIn, or put it in Slack channels. because like I had nothing to show. I only had my own, like I needed to produce a good blog post which I knew somebody would like, and then I could distribute that. Then what else did we do? We tried to get on as many podcasts as we could, and like still to this day we still do this, where search for whatever topic or somebody in your team knows something about on Google. So whether that's like CTO podcast or a marketing podcast or a B2B podcast or whatever it is, a lot of the shows actually do like to get pitches because they also need to come up with content for their show. So and once you've been on a podcast, you actually have some content that you can recycle and put on your own blog, or you can put it on social media or stuff like that. And then at the late stage of the pre-seed phase, we started to run some paid ads as well, particularly on Google search, where kind of there was some high. There was not a lot of search traffic to get, but there was some high intent keywords where we could run ads and push people to our website. And then like combined with we actually I think we invented some events and webinars as well. Like we reached out to, for example, segment.com and asked whether we should do a joint physical event in Copenhagen, where we had 70 people joining there, and I think Segment got 3 customers out of it, and we got 2 customers out of it. And if you have nothing, then if you have no product, you can still get really smart people together physically or digitally and like attract people to sign up to these things. And now you have an excuse for sending them an email afterwards and inviting them to continue the conversation.
It's funny because indeed you walk through, your background is this whole marketing, paid search, paid ads, Facebook ads 2016. And then you come into the situation where it is a product that actually doesn't have a lot of demand. So you need to start creating the demands. Yeah. And it's funny how your mind shifted towards, I'm not going to do outbound spamming, but I'm going to reach out to podcasts and build high quality relationships, basically. Love it.
I think that's it's a good situation that you need to think about, like, as you say, like, it's not the tech, it's the mindset, it's not the individual tactic. So like whatever product you're in, some products might have existing search that you can tap into, others don't. Okay, if there's no existing search, what are the options we then have? And I think that's also why you see us posting on LinkedIn so much nowadays, that there's still not a large, like, the interesting market for us is still the non-users of B2B attribution platforms, or like us. The big market is the ones that run on spreadsheets and CRM systems and crap like that we still need to convince. And the way you can do that is to figure out who is the ideal customers of your product, and then you can continuously show high quality content in front of them, and at some point, hopefully, they'll show up at your website.
I'm gonna leave it there. I think that was the beauty part, where I'm gonna log down also, so you can head over to your next meeting in a second. But first of all, Steffen, very much, I appreciate the time. Also, I love the answers. I actually learned quite a few things as well. So I'm happy to hear about your journey. And thank you very much for joining the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me, Ricardo, and well done on the pre-research.
we went 8 years back just for you.
That's good.